It's a wonderful Tuesday evening, and of course, welcome to Ubuntu's channel Debate Time. Now, I am your host, Lance Sanibanda, and of course, this evening, what a great debate topic that we are debating on, and what a great panelist that we have right here. Before I get to introduce the topic and everybody else, let me get to introduce or welcome my co-host this evening. Chaza, good evening. How are you doing today?
Good evening, Lance. I'm doing pretty fine. How are you doing?
Not bad, my brother. Trying to recover from the whole hangover of the long holiday and 5 days of the showgrounds.
Of course. How was your long weekend, by the way?
Well, it was always busy the whole 5 days. In fact, for me, it was more like 6 days because from Thursday all the way up to yesterday, Monday, I was working and showgrounds, live coverages, and everything. So it was pretty hectic. How was yours?
Mine was a restful one. Much of it was on the resting side and a bit of work. It was pretty fine.
Okay, great. So, looking forward to have a meaningful deliberation today as we have a very diverse panelist today, this evening, on today's topic that we are looking at. And I'm pretty excited, looking very much forward to it. All right, so
Indeed, indeed, definitely, it's going to be a heat wave that will actually take place right here on debate time.
all right, so if you are joining us for the very first time, this is Ubuntu channel. Now, we are an online channel that has set trends to say that we will use social media for positive deliberations and positivity so that we can look at the greater development of Mother Zambia. You can find Ubuntu channel on Facebook. Make sure that you like our page and follow our page. It's Ubuntu Channel Zambia, as well as on YouTube, we are Ubuntu Channel Zambia. Do not only subscribe, but also hit on the bell so that every time that we are live, you get to be notified that Ubuntu Channel is live. Not forgetting, on Twitter, we are also Ubuntu Channel Zambia. Now, this evening, we are discussing, is Zambia a democratic country? All right, now, before we get into the nitty-gritties of answering this question, let me get to introduce our panel for this particular evening. On the far right, we have Mr. Sindazi, who is Economics Front member of the Central Committee. Mr. Sindazi, good evening and welcome to this interview.
Thank you, Lance. It's good to be here on behalf of my party, the Economic Front. Good evening, panelists, and also our viewers out there, for our listeners and viewers.
All right, so thank you so much. Also, on my bottom left, I have with me Kapolyo given. For this one, Youth for Parliament, as well as women in politics. Good evening, madam, and welcome to this week's edition of the debate.
Thank you so much, Lance, for having me. It's indeed a pleasure to be here.
All right, thank you so much. And also on the far right, or on my far right, I have with me the lead watch for High Five Governance Lead Watch country coordinator, I would say. That is Mr. Charles Mbombela. Mr. Mbombela, good evening and welcome to this week's edition of the debate on Ubuntu channel.
Lance, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to share a platform with like-minded individuals. I'm looking forward to having you today. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So also we have governance activists, media rights activists, as well as also an activist in all fronts and forms. We are talking about Mark Simuuwe, who will be joining us a little bit later right here on the program. And today we are discussing, is Zambia a democratic country? Now, to substantiate this question, or to get the ball rolling with this question and in answering the different answers that our discussants on the panel have, let's get to define democracy. You'll be wondering and asking, what is democracy? Well, democracy is a system of government in which laws, policies, leadership, and major undertakings of a state are directly or indirectly decided by the people. So literally, we are saying democracy is the rule by the people for the people. That's what democracy is. Now, to set the ball rolling and have our discussants debate on, is Zambia a democratic country, let's get to look at the cornerstones or the tenets that describes a state, a country, or a nation to be called a democratic country. First of all, we have the freedom of assembly or association. Let's get to link it back to Zambia. Mr. Sindazi, I'll start with you. Generally, before we get to the tenets, is Zambia a democratic country? You are on mute, Mr. Sindazi.
Okay, I was just trying to unmute. Are you able to get me now?
Yes.
Okay, so that is a very good definition that you have given there of the democracy. Now, in answering whether Zambia is truly a democratic country, there is need for us to look at those cornerstones that you have actually highlighted. Okay, so we need to understand whether these tenets are being enjoyed by the people of Zambia. And by so doing, we shall be able to determine whether indeed Zambia is truly a democratic country. So to a large extent, this falls on the administration or the government in place, which the people of Zambia have given a mandate, all right? And in this situation, obviously, we are looking at the government of the day, and to determine whether what they're doing right now would, or how, to the extent to which they are fulfilling the rule of law, which is something which is very fundamental in ensuring that there is democracy, that a country is indeed democratic. It is for the government of the day to ensure primarily that the rule of law is being followed. So in answering this, we need to look at the rule of law, because it's the rule of law which guarantees these cornerstones that you were trying to refer to. We're looking at the rights of freedom, the freedom of assembly, the freedom of association, the freedom to own property, the freedom of religious inclusiveness, speech, the freedom of speech. All these tenets have to come out for us to indeed enjoy and say that we are a democratic country. This far, most people have really looked at democracy in relation to elections only. But that is not the case. There is more to it than just elections. And in fact, when we look at the same elections that we are able to do in this country, you find that, as per your definition, the people choose who to rule them, isn't it, or to preside over their affairs. But even in doing so, we are not able to fund our own elections. We are not even able to print ballot papers for our elections. So to start with, even the elections themselves, that we pride ourselves as being a pioneer in this in the region, having changed governments within political parties and across political parties, we still are not able to do our elections freely, and we are not able to do our elections fully funded by ourselves, that is. So then when you look at the rule of law, which I've just mentioned, obviously, as we go into the thick of things, into the debate, I'll be able to substantiate that, in fact, the democracy that we have in this country is a facade. It is far from being a true democracy. Yes, indeed, we are able to vote in a party in and out, but if you look at the tenets of democracy, people are not able to enjoy that which they are supposed to enjoy. So to begin with, as an introduction for me, I'm saying Zambia is not truly a democratic country. I thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Sindazi, for that input. Now, let's get to move, still talking about is Zambia truly a democratic country, debating on that motion. Let's get to go to Madam Kapolyo. Given Kapolyo, please come in. Is Zambia truly a democratic country, looking at the definition of democracy?
Thank you so much. I hope you're able to get me. My network is quite bad, but thank you so much. In answering the question, is Zambia truly a democracy? I'm very quick to respond to the tenets of democracy and then labeling them against our country, and then see how we as a country have responded to these tenets that define a democracy. And if I am answering based on that, I will firmly and unapologetically say that Zambia does not represent the true tenets of democracy. Allow me to justify this in my introduction. The true definition of democracy is not pakanwafia. It's not just something that you pronounce and expect that because we declare that we're a democracy, then we are a democracy. It must be something that must be enshrined in our systems and in our institutions, which is not represented. Because depending on what leader takes up one, democracy can highly be undermined in this country. And for us to truly boast of being a true democracy, the tenets of democracy that we'll be speaking about this evening, some of which have been listed, the separation of powers, the freedom of the press, transparency and accountability, and all these other tenets, if they're not truly enshrined in our systems, in our processes, and in the daily transactions and running of the country, then really the speaking of democracy is an illusion for this country. So for instance, let me speak to the separation of powers as my first point, even as I delve into the debate. We have the head of state, who is the head of the executive, who still appoints the head of the judiciary, who's the chief justice. And already that is interference, because we have the head of the judiciary being appointed by the head of the executive. Already, isn't that the executive interfering in the running of the judiciary? And so if we just pick one point and relate democracy to that, already it fails, because democracy demands that there must be total separation of powers of the three organs of government. And just a quick mention, for a country that boasts of democracy, this is when we are tabling, we're still crying for the access to information bill. If we are, according to the definition given of democracy, we spoke to how it is rule of the majority and rule of the people. And so if the people don't have access to information, how are they ruling? How do we boast of a democracy? Then really it is just that, an illusion. What we have is a partial democracy, an illusion of democracy. And I think as we delve into the debate, I'll be able to justify some of the reasons why I actually do believe what we have is not a democracy, because it's a copied system. We've copied a system and not domesticated it, and just want to to run with it in its original state without realizing that the people that we copied it from are at a different place from where we are as a country. And that is part of the reason why our democracy is failing. But in answering your question real quick, I'll proudly and unapologetically say that Zambia does not have the true representation of a true democracy. I thank you.
All right, so thank you so much. Sorry for that. Thank you so much, Madam Kapolyo. Quickly, let's get to Mr. Mbombela. Mr. Mbombela, with the definition of democracy, do you think that Zambia is truly a democratic country?
Thank you so much. And, thank you so much for I think whenever the word democracy pops up anywhere, I think the only thing, the first thing that mind is how were leaders in power at that particular time, because we wouldn't discuss okay. So I think stemming from the definition of democracy is where the supreme power is vested, directly by them or by their elected agent. The election should be free and fair. For starters, that is what brings in leaders. That is how people can do against it. It is primarily putting leaders that they want. For starters, the democracy. And in Zambia, fortunately, we have a record for democratic, free and fair election, peaceable transition of power, of course, except the period from 1964 to 1991, because it was only in the year 1990 when Kaunda considered the public for the reintroduction of multi-party democracy, which subsequently saw him and UNIP hounded out of power in the elections that were held in October. So we first of all need to appreciate the fact that before we discuss democracy that we have right now in the country, there was a period, 1964 to 1990, when the country was ruled under dictatorial tenure. So this will make us appreciate that we've got transformation and guided jealous as a people. So despite all this, they still remain the need for all of us, to promote better governance, to reinforce democratic practice. We need to have reforms. For instance, my colleague even talked about separation of powers. This is the time when we need to have the independence of the legislature, independence of the executive, so that because this apparently seems to be the most important that enhances democracy in our country. It is separation of powers. But I think in our country, it has been very low in terms of implementation. So I think there's needed for us to have reform so that we have judiciary, effective legislature, creating checks and balances that can counter vices like corruption, inequalities, among other things. So when we're talking, for instance, about the principles, the doctrines of separation of powers, these are the tenets that, among other things, suggest that once we have an independent judiciary, once we have an independent legislature, and once we have an independent executive, we are going to create a country where this organ of the government more like supervises, the works of the functions of the other organ of government. no, this is recipe for order, this is recipe for democracy, and this is recipe for rule of law. Because if organ of the government, like it is, assumes the autonomy of power, it becomes so difficult, even for other organs of the government to operate. It becomes so difficult for other organs of the government to coexist when they are supposed to exist independently, first of all, and just supplement each other, supplement one another where need be. So in Zambia, I think we have not had any successive government that endeavored to ensure that these organs of the government are working independently. So if we are describing democracy, we are describing democracy in that this has body zero, because the judges appointed by the president, the speakers, they are all influenced politically, and so on and so forth. So in that regard, we have failed as a country. And what these governments have been doing is that we have the tenets of democracy, which must be applied at once, at all, as a unit. But this particular government will come in and adopt maybe respect for human rights, but they're not giving you free and fair elections. So those are the historic injustices that we need to talk about now, and those are some of the issues that we need to say. If we want to be renowned as a democratic country, let us apply all the tenets of democracy as a unit. Let us not give people their rights, the other hand is grabbing the same rights. Let us not give people free and fair elections, but we don't give them freedom, to express themselves, to put those leaders that they to account. So basically, democracy is in a mixed bag. We have leaders that have been able to do this, and some failed, to implement the tenets of democracy. I think
Mbombela, your time is up. Thank you so much. All right. So for our viewers that are viewing or that are watching this particular broadcast on different mediums that you are watching us on, it may be on Facebook, it may be on Twitter, as well as on YouTube. We appreciate your following. Please do not only watch alone, but make sure that you share this particular broadcast so that at least we get to educate the masses out there about democracy, as well as them knowing if Zambia is really a democratic country. All right, so apart from that, you can also leave us a comment and we'll be glad to hear from you, as we'll be reading comments live right here in the studios and have the panelists respond to your different questions that which you may raise on this particular platform. Now, remember, this evening we are discussing, is Zambia really a democratic country? And discussants that we have Mr. Sindazi, who is the member of the Central Committee for Economic Front Party, as well as Given Kapolyo, who is a youth for Parliament, as well as women in politics. And not forgetting, we have Mr. Charles Mbombela, who is the lead for High Five Governance Lead Watch right here in Zambia. All right, so quickly, let's get to this other motion, which is very easy and very simple. This one also just requires 5 minutes of each of our discussants before we get into the cornerstones of democracy. Now, our panelists, something that which we need to discuss on to determine if Zambia is really a democratic country. What is the appropriate unit? Like, get me correctly and rightly, what is the appropriate unit or association within which a democratic government should be established? What is the appropriate unit or association within which a democratic government should be established in? Of course, let me start with our only female, as we love to hear from our women folk. And of course, we are discussing, or we are talking about women getting into politics. Madam Kapolyo, please, I would love you to start first to discuss this motion. Madam Kapolyo, are you here? All right, so maybe as we wait for Madam Given Kapolyo, let's get straight to our last speaker, Mr. Mbombela. Please, let's set the ball rolling in debating what is the appropriate unit or association within which a democratic government should be established.
Thank you so much, and I hope I've gotten the question. But if we're talking about a foundation for a democracy, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, though skipping a little bit.
I could see Mr. Sindani giving me. Yeah, so I think for us to create a firm foundation, our democracy, I think the first thing that we need to have strong institutions. By strong institutions, I mean the institutions, first of all, that are responsible for acting. So we need to have an electoral commission that is, first of all, self-sustaining, that is independent, that does not get interfered in the central government of the powers that be, because that is the only institution that can guarantee to the people chosen representatives. So once we build strong institutions, it is a good foundation to grow our democracy. That is one. And what happens when we have now leaders being elected? The will of the people has been respected. We now have leaders. How do we enhance or strengthen democracy? First of all, those leaders need to respect the rule of law. Zambia is a country that is governed. And any leader that wants to govern the affairs of this needs to abide by the rules of the law. This is not a kangaroo country, so we expect any leader that has been given the mandate to people to try to save the people using the tenets or using the provisions of the law. So this is another very important aspect. We need to have in order to improve our democracy, to enhance our democracy. The other thing is that the same people that have voted for you, the same people that have paid to save you, should now be able to express their views, to express their views. Where a leader that has been appointed is going wrong, these people should have the prerogative of saying, this is not what you promised us, this is not why we elected you, you are supposed to do this. People need to be free if you want to have a democratically sound country. The other thing is that the leaders need to exhibit the necessary political will. They need to create an environment where people will be free to criticize them, people will be free to give divergent opinions with regards to how they are governing the country. Once you create that atmosphere, once you create that environment, it is so easy for us to even walk shoulder high and say we are living in a democratic country and we are building democratic institutions and we are building a democratic country. So those are some of the aspects that I feel need to be put in place if we are going to have a democratic country and if we are going to own the democracy that we already have. I still have time.
Thank you so much. Okay. Yeah, anyway, you I don't know, have you exhausted your point? Because you still have a minute and 15 seconds.
From the top of my head, yeah, I think I've exhausted.
Okay, yeah, sure. Perhaps in 1 minute you can conclude.
Yes, I think maybe the other thing that I forgot is that the constitutionalism, you know, this is a country which has the supreme law in terms of the constitution, and any leader that abrogates the supreme law of the land, that seeks to govern the aspirations of the people, that's their ruling, that they're presiding over, should be called to order, should be rendered after bias, should be rendered now and void to an extent of abrogating the document that we consider supreme. Among other things, I think we should constitutionalism, respect human rights, civil liberties, open democratic spaces, political will, and there should be tolerance. People need to be tolerated. So I think that is a space that we need to have. And Zambia currently is lagging behind in terms of implementing the tenets of democracy. Laws are there. Documentation is there. What the problem is apparently is that the leaders that we have appropriately implement those provisions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mbombela. Your time is up. We appreciate your input. Quickly, let's get to Mr. Sindazi, as I get to remind not only Mr. Sindazi, but also our viewers and those that have just tuned in. Today, this evening on Ubuntu channel debate time, we are discussing, is Zambia a democratic country? We have defined what a democracy is and debated if Zambia is a democracy. Now we are looking at what is the appropriate unit or association within which a democratic government should be established. Mr. Sindazi, please, you have 5 minutes. All right. It looks like we are having some connectivity difficulties right there with Mr. Sindazi. Now, for those of you that are joining us for the very first time, like this is your first time watching Ubuntu channel. Ubuntu channel is an online channel that is set for you, our lovely viewer, so that you can have a chance to express your view, to express your concern, and also come through and talk about the different governance programs that which we get to bring for you, as well as for you to get to meet your different leaders. Now, remember that on a Tuesday like this one at 21 hours, we get to bring to you Ubuntu channel debate time from 21 hours all the way up to 22. And also tomorrow, Wednesday, every Wednesday, we get to bring to you Meet Your Leaders, which is a program that brings about different aspects of life. We get to bring different leaders from different political spheres to come and share with us how we should engage or what we want to find out. Then on a Thursday, we get to bring to you Pansaka. Now, Pansaka is a social life or a social change life kind of a program where we get to talk about or discuss different things. We talk about marriage, we talk about relationships, we talk about love, and also we have different councils that get to come back from there. But for this evening, this is Ubuntu channel's debate time, and this evening we are discussing, is Zambia truly a democratic country? Right about now, we want our panelists to talk about what is the appropriate unit or association within which a democratic government should be established. And of course, Mr. Mbombela has already stressed this point. Let's get through to Madam Given Kapolyo to also stress her point. Madam Given, your time starts now.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry that you lost me there, but I'm glad to be back. And I hope I have gotten the question clearly.
You have muted yourself. Kindly unmute. Now you've unmuted. Please go ahead.
Lance, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. And so before I do start with making my point, I first of all just would like to disagree with something that Comrade Mbombela did speak to. I think when he speaks to the systems are there and the laws are there and whatnot, I think I firmly disagree. I feel like we really have very, very weak systems, very weak institutions, very weak laws, for lack of a better term. Because see, the current state of our country is that we are genuinely at the mercy of whoever we elect. What this means is, if we elect someone that is not kind-hearted, someone that is not good, or someone that does not want to subscribe to the tenets of democracy, then really it just goes absurd, because we don't have systems or laws or even institutions that will firmly put that person back in line. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I was disagreeing on that point. I think the problem that we have is we have very weak laws, very weak systems, and very weak institutions, to a point where if we have a bad leader occupying power, we are genuinely at their mercy. They can do with the country as they please. We've seen this happen. I want to refrain from citing examples because I'm trying by all means to not be political, but we've seen this happen. And so we need a system where we need systems, institutions, and laws to a point where even when we have a bad leader in office, we have systems that regulate them. We have laws that regulate them. So even we need strong systems to a point where even when we have weak men, the systems, the laws, and what holds our country together remains the same. To a point where we cannot escalate to a point where things are so bad and people cannot do anything. So we need strong laws, strong institutions in place. Even when we have weak men, we still remain a democracy. In quickly running to what I want to speak to, on the appropriate unit of how a democratic government should come into being. Was that the question?
Yes, that was the question.
Okay, thank you. In speaking to that, I think the genuineness of leadership in a democracy is that you should be democratically elected, and this should then begin from, because I feel like the electoral process is it's called a process because it's a whole process. It's not just something that happens on election day. And I constantly say this, I say, leaders in a democracy are not chosen on election day. It's a whole process. It's about, it begins from voter registration, voter education, because if we're saying the power resides with the people, then the people must be informed. So I feel like the appropriate unit of electing a genuine democratic leader lies in the entire process. So it should begin from people that are going to elect this leader correctly informed on the process, are people that are going to elect this democratic government. Are they registered? Is the registration process, the education process transparent? Is it authentic? Is there any dubiousness going on? We've seen situations where certain areas have more registered people, because even if registration is beginning today, in certain areas, registering agents will only get there next week. And I think that is already a flaw in the system and in the unit of electing or constituting a democratic government. But also, apart from that, I also feel like the appropriate or accurate unit of arriving at a democratic government or leadership, constituting a democratic leadership, should be in the freedom that is accorded to people to belong to whatever political party they want to belong to, freely assemble. 50 plus years after independence, almost 60, we're still debating the Public Order Act. Already that begins to give me power to question the elections that we've held, because if we have a flawed Public Order Act, then already we are saying our electoral system, our electoral process has been flawed, because it favors those that still remain in power. Because if this is when we now want to table the Public Order Act. What has been happening all these years? We've had a Public Order Act that has been very biased, and you begin to even question if the laws and the acts that are supposed to guide you to the process of constituting a democratic government are flawed, then the entire process is flawed. And I think that's my position on this issue.
All right. Thank you so much, Madam Kapolyo, for that. Mr. Sindazi, please come in and also raise your point on what is the appropriate unit or association within which a democratic government should be established. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Lance. Firstly, I've not been able to, I was trying to switch on my mic, and it's like there was a feedback, and finally it went down. I've not been able to hear any of the discussants, whatever. There's nothing that I've been able to hear. But key in ensuring that we have a democracy in the country is in ensuring that we have. Hello?
Yes, I can get you. Though you are now on mute, kindly unmute yourself. Mr. Sindazi, are you still here? Okay, please go ahead. I can hear you.
Okay. All right, thank you. So the appropriate unit really has to do with the rule of law. It is because it is from the rule of law. Sorry if I'll be repeating whatever others have said, because I was not able to hear what they were saying. So it is from the rule of law that we are able to determine whether all that we are supposed to enjoy will be fulfilled. For instance, when you look at the laws, the various laws that we have in this country, yes, indeed, there are some laws which would need to be repealed. There are some laws that may need to be amended, but these laws generally apply to everyone in their bad state. So the most important thing is, what is the government of the day doing? How is the government of the day applying such laws? Are they applying the law? Are they ensuring that the law is applied to everyone equally? Look at, like, I can give an example of the Public Order Act. The Public Order Act, yes, there are a lot of laws there are a lot of provisions there which are not good. But from inception up to today, this so-called bad law is only bad for others except the ruling party and those that support the ruling party. That is where the problem is. So there's need for political will, change of character, that we are able to apply even the bad laws, because we will never come to a situation where we have very good laws which are good for everyone. But even as bad as they are, let there be a fair application of the law. And this also goes to the setup of the government. You see, there's need for a political will to the top executive to show that indeed they are willing and able to abide by the law. What we have seen is that, sorry to give this example because we are now dealing with the UPND, which is in power, isn't it? So I will give examples of the ruling party. There is a presumption that everyone is innocent till proven guilty. But we found the president who cannot be sued, being able to abrogate certain laws. For instance, the president is able to speak on matters which are in court. Okay, so that presumption that indeed everyone is innocent before until being proven guilty is abrogated. So it is about the government in place to ensure that the rule of law is being upheld. From 1991 up to this time, we've had several governments, and we can basically judge them in accordance to the extent to which they've been able to live by the rule of law. Yes, indeed, from 1972, when we went into the second democracy, second republic, we can't say that we had democracy at the time, because in fact, what we're learning in school is one party perspective.
Your time is up. Thank you so much.
Oh, sorry.
Remember that.
All right.
Thank you. Remember that each discussant only has 5 minutes to stress through their point, their comment, as well as their idea on the motion that we are debating, as well as a reminder to our panelists. Please, when we have one on the set and you'd love to raise a point of order on something that they have raised which you feel is not right, please open your mic, come through, and we'll give you that immunity to comment or disagree or maybe agree with the person that is on the seat speaking at that particular time. So moving forward, or getting to move forward, maybe before we do that, just a reminder also to our viewers, please leave a comment, as at 55 we'll be reading all the comments coming through from all our viewers that are watching us across different social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, as well as Twitter. So when we reach the hour mark of 55 minutes, we'll be reading those comments and then get our panelists to respond to that. Now, panelists, let's get to move to the last motion of debate this evening. We are talking about the tenets, cornerstones of democracy. These are a lot. Remember, the overall topic is Zambia a democratic country. So let's look at the tenets that describe what a democratic state, country, or nation is, and then let's compare to Zambia. So at first, you gave your opinions whether Zambia is a democratic country or not, and then after counter-checking on the tenets that are listed for what determines a democratic country, I will also ask you to come back and review if what you said is really true or not. So let's get to go to the cornerstones or the tenets. First of all, I would love our discussants to discuss what you have all brought forth. And in this discussion, I'm only giving you 2 minutes each. My producer, please take note. I'm only giving 2 minutes for each discussant to discuss each and every tenet that we bring through. So number one, everyone here spoke about the rule of law. Rule of law is a cornerstone of democracy. I'll start with you, Mr. Mbombela. Is Zambia upholding the rule of law? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. Is Zambia upholding the rule of law? Zambia is not upholding the rule of law at this particular time. And I wouldn't want to sound political, but I would like to give examples. I'd like to give examples. Although they are political in nature, there are still examples that we can still refer to. So one particular example that I may give is that we, the citizens of the Republic of Zambia, have got a constitutional guaranteed right to a free and fair trial. With a free and fair trial, there's a presumption of innocence until proven guilty. And it's that free, fair trial that any suspect needs to undergo. However, what is happening is the opposite of the laws, that when we are talking about rule of law, we are talking about ruling this country in accordance with the provisions of the law. But we have some suspects that are detained in police custody, in various prisons for over 6 months without in court. So does that speak the rights that have been given to us by the Constitution? No. Just recently, we saw how soldiers were torturing suspects. A few months ago, we saw how soldiers tortured the suspect in the name of Shebi should be. And the Constitution is very categorical with regards to torture. No person should be subjected to inhuman or degrading treatment. But we saw it. Are we ruling by the law? Absolutely not. These and many more examples would signify that Zambia is not being governed by the law. And the moment that we change to start ruling these people by the Constitution of Constitutions, I think the narrative, I think my time is up.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mbombela. All right, let me quickly get through to Given Kapolyo. Given, is Zambia truly ruling by the rule of law? If yes, give reasons. If no, give reasons as well. You only have 2 minutes to debate this motion. Given, do we have you? Producer, please wait on the timer. I think Given is not here. Let's quickly get to Mr. Sindazi. Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Sindazi, is Zambia living by the rule of law?
Zambia is indeed not living by the rule of law. Reason being that we have seen these tenets, other tenets, which are being abrogated because of the system rule of law, which is not being upheld. We have seen arbitrary detentions where people have been detained without being charged, and the same offenses for which they are being charged, if there are those, if these are committed by people that are pro-government or those who are in government or pro-government, then they are not arrested. We have seen situations where people are detained even after a long time in detention, then the charges are changed. We saw, for instance, a situation where somebody is arrested for murder, and then they are detained for a long period of time, only to be changed to, only for the offense to be changed to assault. So indeed, the rule of law is not being upheld. We find that when it comes to the freedom of speech, the party in government will always use the defamation.
Mr. Sindazi,
Yes,
let's go
yes.
tenant by tenant. So right now we're only dealing with the rule of law. Freedom of speech will come to it.
Okay. Yeah, well, what I wanted to say in the rule of law, within the rule of law, is that there's a law which is being used to curtail other tenets, like the law on the defamation of character. That is what I was trying to say, that it is only being used on those that are, and this is not only to do with the UPND, but right from inception, this is the way it has been. They have been using this.
Mr. Sindazi, we'll come back to that. Thank you so much. Your time is up. Let's quickly get to Ms. Kapolyo. Ms. Kapolyo, is Zambia living by the rule of law?
Thank you so much, Lance. I don't think Zambia is living up to what the rule of law demands, because the rule of law implies that the creation of laws, but also the enforcement of those laws are fairly done and equal to everyone, regardless of who they are in society. The problem that we have in our country is our lawmakers, those that we entrust with the power to form laws on our behalf, go into parliament and decide on laws that favor them as they are in power, forgetting that there'll come a time when they'll not be in power anymore, they'll just be a regular citizen, and those laws that they're forming today will come and apply to them. And so we make these laws that are very unjust and favor a particular grouping. I want to give an example without sounding political, because I'm very political by nature. But of course, let me speak because I'm very passionate about women. Also, I'll speak to the issue of Mumbi Piri, who's still in Mongo in I don't know if she's in prison or cells, because she's not had her day in court, and the law must apply fairly. That you are charged, you have your day in court, you defend yourself. If you're free, you're let go. If you're not, it continues. And without sounding political, this is not even an issue of the current government, because the current government is actually making strides to abide by the rule of law. But we've seen this happen even in the past regime, where it was at the mercy of the politicians. The law favors them and everyone else is just at their mercy. What they decide, forget the law. We had issues where for being victimized were being threatened when they wanted to exercise their rights, because the rule of law doesn't even apply to them. For instance, I have taken part in various protests where we've gone to the police and the law demands that we inform them and they're there to escort us, but then they deny us a permit. And a certain grouping that is pro-government will go and request a permit, and they're given one instantly. Because of time, I'll end there and I'll speak to it further when we come to freedom of expression.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And like you have rightly put it, so instead of freedom of expression, I would really neatly rush to freedom of religion and speech. Mr. Sindazi, let me start with you. 2 minutes. Mr. Sindazi, are you here? Well, Madam Kapolyo, let me start with you. The freedom of religion and speech is part of the tenets that we have for democracy. Are we living up to that?
Thank you so much, Lance. Freedom of religion and speech, you said. Are we living up to the standard of freedom of speech and religion as a country? I think religion, we have been pretty kind as a country. I feel like from my interactions with the community, society, and even from my travelings, I think I can firmly say on the area of freedom of religion, we have been accommodating as a country. On the area of freedom of speech, it depends on who you know, who you are, and where you belong, what association you belong to. Then you are accorded a certain level of freedom of speech. It also depends on what you're about to say. If you're pro this grouping, you are accorded free. It's very selective freedom of speech that really does not favor everyone. Because there was a time when we actually stood up as young people and decided to speak to some of the issues that were affecting us as young people, some of the issues that were going on at a particular time. And just being able to speak, I remember very vividly that we were told our bonds will be crushed. We were told various things just to shut up the voice of young people. So I feel like there's still some victimization, but also that's in the previous regime. In this regime, a problem that we have when it comes to freedom of speech is what we call the praise singers, because even when you try to be objective, you as a Zambian citizen that wants to speak to certain issues in your own country will then be called names, and people then are in fear to even speak objectively, because the fear that because I will say this, I will be labeled as this, because I'll say this, I'll be labeled as this. And that, I think, has been a hindrance to freedom of speech in this country. But also, just to speak on freedom of speech, the thing about the tenets of democracy is, even though they give you power and authority as a citizen, they also come with responsibility. So I've seen instances where people are given the mandate to speak freely, but then it tends to this abusive and degradatory language that then can just cause havoc and even lead to disputes in the country, where people now begin to bring in issues of tribal remarks, and then they use their freedom of speech to injure or divide the nation. And I think even as we exercise our freedom of speech in a democracy, it is very important that we are quick to know that freedoms and rights come with responsibility. And where your right ends, your friend's right also begins. But in answering your question, we have a very shaky access to freedom of speech. It is very shaky and very dependent on various factors, which should not be the case. I think in a democratic country where we elect leaders, we should be free to speak and hold them accountable. I thank you.
All right. So sorry about that. There was a little bit glitch of internet right there. But Madam Kapolyo, thank you so much for that. Let's quickly go to Mr. Mbombela. So, Mr. Mbombela, freedom of speech and religion. Where are we?
Wow, thank you so much. In Zambia, we have primarily been given freedom of speech, but we have not been guaranteed the freedom after. That has been seemingly the problem that we have. People that would be deemed favorable to the powers that be allowed a microphone as well as a camera themselves to speak, on behalf of government and not on behalf of people. So I think, just like my colleague put it, our freedom of speech is really coded and highly selected. Okay, they have to appoint who is going to speak and what they are going to talk about. So basically, freedom of speech, a lot of us have been talking about it, and apparently this time around, I think we've made strides. It's relatively improved, although not to a larger extent. But I think, looking at where we're coming from and where we are, I think for those that know they've been hard to ensure that they give rights to Simuuwe to engage any media house and speak. I think we are improving, and we hope this political will that has been exhibited by the government will continue even during, even before, during and after election, because they become when it comes to the freedom of speech during elections. On the other hand, I think freedom of religion, I think we've not had any problem as a country. A lot of people are free to belong to any religious grouping that they want. Me, where I come from in Karugushi, my own mother is United States of Zambia. We had a relative was there, and there was no point at any time where you don't bounce on those particular religious grouping. Others are more stable. A lot of Zambians who are joining other religions and so on and so forth. So basically, the religious aspect, we do not have any problem. But on the aspect of the speech expression, I think that's where the major challenge is. And of course, we need to pay cognizance of the fact that we have relatives not well aware about 10 months ago, and just hope we are going to put in mechanisms to enhance, the freedom of speech that has really been given to us on a smaller portion, of course. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mbombela. Mr. Sindazi, freedom of speech as well as freedom of religion. Where do you think we are as a country? Mr. Sindazi, are you here? All right. Looks like we're still having connectivity challenges right there. But ladies and gentlemen, time is never a best ally when you are discussing pertinent issues that are to do with the growth of the country, as well as so many things that discusses the moving forward of the country. At first, I asked, where are we? Is Zambia really a democratic country? Now, looking at the different democratic tenets that we have, or the tenets that looks at democracy, we have freedom of assembly or association, we have property rights, freedom of religion and speech, inclusiveness and equality, as well as citizenship, uh, consent of the governed, not forgetting the voting rights, freedom from unwarranted governmental deprivation of the right to life and liberty, as well as the minority rights. We talk about the civil liberties, independent judiciary, the rule of law, and also the opposition space. But before we go, let me get to give chance to Mr. Sindazi. Mr. Sindazi, where are we in terms of freedom of religion and speech?
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. For the religion, I think that we've done fairly well as a country. However, there is just this notion that, we cannot have so many churches in this country, and yet we are willing to have so many drinking places, and yet we are a Christian nation. When various churches would like to apply for, or even to congregate in schools and other places, they are being curtailed, saying no, there are too many churches. And yet when you come out, every corner you find, there are a lot of bars. So we need to really live true to our word as a Christian nation. But generally, we are fine. Then coming to the freedom of speech, I think I've already made my point that every government of the day, and especially this particular one, under 11 months, they've been able to arrest so many people using this defective law of the defamation of the president. And then also, when it comes to freedom of speech, it matters that you are given a platform to speak. And what is happening at the moment is that the state media only gives time to the government of the day. They would make promises, just like the current government made, that the state media will be available to each and everyone, every political.
We seem to still be having internet challenges right there with Mr. Sindazi. But however, we appreciate every contribution that have come through. For our viewers and everybody that has left a comment with us under this broadcast, we really appreciate you, and we thank you for being a part of this broadcast. Now, producer, allow me to give a minute to each of our discussants to come back to the question: is Zambia truly a democratic country? Are we a democratic country? Let's get to see if they change their views, or they still continue with their views which they gave at first when we started the program. Mr. Mbombela, is Zambia truly a democratic country? A minute only. All right. We seem to also still be having connectivity challenges right there with Mr. Mbombela. Let's get to see if we can bring in Miss Kapolyo. Madam Kapolyo, do you still stand by what you said? Is Zambia a democratic country?
Thank you so much, Lance. Is Zambia a democratic country? As I said when I opened, if I objectively rate the running of this country against the tenets of democracy, I can unapologetically say it falls short. And therefore, it would be unfair to claim it a democratic nation when it does not subscribe or run by the tenets of democracy. Do I think we are doing well? We are making strides as a nation to run democratically? I think we are. And I feel with the will that the current government is painting to the nation, that they want to run with the tenets of democracy, we continue to look forward to a time when we can firmly and proudly say, I come from Zambia. It is a democratic nation and it runs by the tenets of democracy. But also it would be wise that even as we have adopted democracy, which, as I said, is a foreign ideology, we must find ways of domesticating it in a way that our people understand and are able to run with. Democracy gives power to the people. If your people are uninformed, they are unaware of the power that they possess. Give power to the people, and then maybe we can begin to boast of a democracy. I thank you, and thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure being part of this program.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kapolyo. We really appreciate that you were a part of this program. Before we conclude the program, Mr. Mbombela, please come through within a minute. Do you still think that Zambia is a democratic nation?
Thank you so much. Unequivocally, Zambia is not democratic. And the recommendation that we need to give thereafter is that we, civil society organizations, as individuals, we need to embrace the urgent action to address the concerns and ensure that the government upholds, its mandate of being accountable, first of all, and ensure it addresses most of its. We have of responding to democratic challenges, and I think one of the most key interventions that we need is that we need to limit and control the power of the state. Of course, any democracy needs a well-functioning and authoritarian state. But when a country like Zambia, which once experienced dictatorship from 1994 to 1991, I think we was taking, monitoring, and restraining the powers of the political leaders and state officials. So we need to raise public awareness, and we need to denounce any sort of abuse, human rights abuse, speaking of our civic spaces and so on and so forth, so that we do not get back to the period 1994 to 1991. So let us continuously hold hands as state organizations, as patriotic Zambians, and defend the little democracy that we have, and continuously enhance the democratic tenets.
Mr. Mbombela, thank you so much. Your time is up. Mr. Sindazi, quickly, do you still live by what you said at the start of the debate? Is Zambia truly a democratic nation?
Yes, I'm standing by my initial statement that Zambia is not indeed a democratic country. From the economic point of view, under which all other tenants may fall, we have been left in a situation.
And some party
Hello?
including FTC chairperson Wasabirigwa.
Mr. Mbombela, please,
the
can you
headquarters at
mute
Kapolyo
your
Road
mic?
through Kunjiri district, where he was expected
Hello? Are you
to
able to
address
get
the
me?
His convoy snaked through Kampala towards Masaka.
Okay. Yes, I'm able to get you. Please, the director, switch off your mic. Sorry, Mr. Sindazi, go ahead.
Okay, so from the economic point of view, I think that we are in a lot of trouble as a country right now because we cannot even decide our own destiny. The fact that the decisions have been made by the party of the day, which affect our economic development, makes even other tenets of democracy to be enjoyed. For instance, when you have made decisions where you are sort of on remote, you are given conditions for you to run the economy, then it becomes a challenge. You find yourselves in a very high cost of living, in a situation where people are not able to enjoy their freedom. For instance, a freedom of owning property. I've seen a lot of people parking vehicles because the fuel cost, the cost of fuel has risen so high, because not because of our doing, because we got a directive through the government decision to go to IMF. They gave them conditions. Obviously, at first they refused, but one of them actually came to the fore and rescued us. Those of us who were saying that it's a conditionality of IMF, and was able to say it is IMF which has given us a condition to remove the subsidy. Look at this situation where, so we are basically in the neo.
Mr. Sindazi, your time is up. All right, so it seems also internet glitches have come in right there. But anyway, thank you so much to our panelists, our discussants. Thank you so much for this evening. Thank you so much for tonight. We really appreciate that you were a part of this program. And please leave your doors open as Ubuntu channel. We will be coming through, knocking on your doors to come through on this particular platform so that we can get to educate, announce, and also tell the many Zambian masses out there what Zambia is all about. Now, to our ardent followers of the channel, please do make a date with us tomorrow on Meet Your Leaders, as this is an interactive platform for engaging leaders. When you talk about leaders, we are talking about, please, Director, let's come back to Meet Your Leaders. All right, so, Director, please, let's come back to Meet Your Leaders. All right, anyway, here is a program guide for our ardent followers. So on Meet Your Leaders, this is a program that comes your way every Wednesday from 21 hours to 22. Now on this platform, we get to interact with engaging different leaders. We talk about politicians, government and public officials, the clergy, professionals, traditional and civic leaders. So tomorrow, Wednesday, make a date with us at 21 hours as we get to bring to you an exciting guest. And then on a Thursday, we always get to bring to you Pansaka. Now, Pansaka is a program that discusses relationships, marriage, religion, and other social issues. It comes your way Thursdays, 21 hours, with our able guest, that is Evangelist Herbert Shabula, who is a marriage counselor for over 30 years and also former Itestezi Member of Parliament. Then on Friday as well at 21 hours, we get to bring to you Ubuntu Channel Sports. Now on this program or on this platform, we get you to meet your different sporting icons, coaches for football, coaches for athletics, coaches for different sporting disciplines. And also not forgetting on a Saturday, we get to bring to you a program which is called Point of View at 21 hours. Now on Point of View, this is a program that gets to introduce to you stories that have trended all over the week. So from Monday to Friday, we get to talk about stories that have trended. We ask you to come through and share with us your point of view on each and every story that trended according to you in a particular week. Then on Sunday, we always make sure that we get back to the load and get to talk about the Lord. So we always get to bring to you a moment of grace with Namonji. All right, so Sunday, Gospel Zone or a moment of grace gets to come through to you. Then Mondays, always we get to bring to you the Health Zone, as we want or as we strive to make sure that you and I and everybody else gets to be healthy as we live a healthy life. My discussants or panelists, thank you so much for being a part, as well as you, the viewers. We appreciate you for being part of the program. Make a date with us again when we come back on a Tuesday and bring to you a variety of discussants on this very show. I've been your host, Lance Sani Bandan. Good evening, take care of yourself, and have a productive week.